So I've recently been getting an influx of new viewers and subscribers from my John Pertwee Doctor Who reviews, and I'm not sure why that is, but I've had some thoughts in my head about Invasion of the Dinosaurs for a while, and now seems like the ideal time to cover that serial. Back in my review of Frontier in Space, I remarked that I couldn't imagine Malcolm Hulke siding with Amazon due to his radical political leanings. For those who aren't aware or didn't see that video, Hulke is a former member of the Communist Party who frequently used Doctor Who as a vehicle for social and political commentary. But then I remembered that Hulke did actually once write a script for Doctor Who with a twist villain and a lot of the same themes, which bears an uncanny resemblance to Kerblam, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. The biggest problem with Invasion of the Dinosaurs is not so much an issue with the story, but with the fact that dinosaurs were marketed as the main gimmick. Malcolm Hulke himself was not a fan of the title, and I'd argue it harmed the reputation of the serial and continues to do so to this day. Granted, the Doctor Who production office weren't to know just how poorly realised on screen the eponymous dinosaurs would be, but the title is also kind of misleading, since the plot is actually more of an espionage conspiracy narrative, with the dinosaurs only really getting screen time at the very beginning and end. In my view, the original working title of Time Scoop would have been much more appropriate. Plus, if the production team really felt the dinosaurs should be the main marketing point, then they kind of shot themselves in the foot anyway by contracting the opening episode title to just Invasion, a decision which Hulke also protested. As has been a recurring complaint of mine with the 6 and 7 parters from the Third Doctor era, the pacing isn't particularly great, with the first 2 episodes primarily consisting of the Doctor and Sarah Jane running around the abandoned streets of London attempting to evade the military who have mistaken them for looters, all of which feels pretty superfluous to the main plot and could have easily been cut out by having them be immediately intercepted by UNIT. That said, the opening shots of London without any people are very creepy and atmospheric in a liminal sort of way. It's just a shame all of that atmosphere and tension evaporates the moment the aforementioned unconvincing dinosaurs show up. Eventually the Doctor does make his way to UNIT, who are trying to get to the bottom of who is responsible for the apparitions. The dinosaurs, as it turns out, are just a diversion for the real plan, which is to roll back time so that a select group of chosen individuals can restart civilization and make a new utopia, without greed or corruption or pollution to the environment. However, not everyone is in on the plan, as most of the recruits have been put onto a fake spaceship and believe they're actually going to a new planet. Not only does this tie into the overall theme of where the ends justify the means, but intentional or otherwise, it also feels like a bit of self-aware commentary on the low-budget nature of Doctor Who sets at the time. Like, the idea that the fake spaceship is actually a fake spaceship just seems like a stroke of genius to me. It also leads into one of my all-time favourite what the hell cliffhangers when Sarah first wakes up on the spaceship and is told that she left Earth 3 months ago. The biggest twist, however, is that long-time ally and UNIT operative Mike Yates is in on the conspiracy. Now, I've seen mixed responses to Yates' betrayal, and there are some who really loathe this plot development. I just have to admire the boldness of it. It takes guts to have a recurring cast member essentially turn bad, and there are a couple of reasons why it really works for me. The first is that a bit of background is established as to how Yates got here, with it being heavily hinted that the events of the Green Death from the previous season deeply affected him, resulting in him going on an extended period of leave from UNIT during which he was presumably recruited. While it would have been nice to have some proper foreshadowing in that story so that the development feels less retroactive, there is a thematic link, with pollution and the environment being a heavy focus of the Green Death, and because of that the betrayal doesn't feel completely out of nowhere. Also, when I say Yates turns bad, it's in pretty big quotation marks, as he's constantly insisting on not resorting to violence and that the Doctor in particular must not be harmed, to the point where his fellow conspirators even question his loyalty. I've seen it argued that it doesn't make sense he would be against violence and yet be okay with erasing billions of people from existence by rolling back time, but the explanation for that is simple. He's been radicalised, and people who've been radicalised don't tend to think rationally. This is exemplified by the fact he even states at one point he doesn't care if he himself gets erased from existence so long as the others make it to the new Golden Age. The second reason I like the Yates subplot is that it's a throwback to Season 7, when the dynamic between the main cast was colder and more distrusting, particularly between the Doctor and the Brigadier. With the introduction of Yates along with Joe Grant and Benton in Season 8, UNIT had started to become a little too cosy for my liking. I was never never a huge fan of the so-called unit family. It is supposed to be a government military organisation after all. Even the generic army uniforms look more cozy when compared to the super formal attire of Season 7. With Unit effectively being torn apart from the inside by Yates' betrayal, the atmosphere is much less warm and friendly in this story, as no one really knows who to trust. At the same time, paradoxically, the narrative tests the strength of the bonds formed between the main characters over the preceding seasons. Like when Yates conspires with Whittaker and General Finch to frame the Doctor as the one responsible for creating the monsters, I get the feeling this would have been sufficient to discredit the Doctor if this was Season 7. But by now the Brigadier and Benton have come to trust the Doctor as an ally and are having none of it. All of this culminates in a scene where Mike Yates holds the Brigadier and the rest of the gang at gunpoint while the Doctor attempts to talk him down, and this is where the themes and the parallels with Kerblam really come to the fore. In a speech that closely resembles their speech to Charlie in Series 11, the Doctor basically argues that while he respects and sympathises with Mike's ideals, this is not the right way to go about changing things, and that he should instead take the world as it is and try to make something out of it. The reason all of this works so much better than in Kerblam is that at no point do you ever get the sense the Doctor is about to downplay the evils of corporate greed and corruption. There's not going to be a "the systems aren't the problem." This story isn't going to brush over that nuance, and it's all the better for it. Whereas Kerblam ends by saying that from now on the workforce is going to be majority organic and all employees will get 2 weeks paid leave while the company closes for a month, and somehow seems to try and frame this as a positive thing, Invasion of the Dinosaurs concludes with a reflective speech from the Doctor about how greed is the real cause of pollution. It's clunky and on the nose, yes, but it does serve to underline the fact that while the Doctor did not approve of Operation Golden Age, he does condone its ideals, and the harm we are doing to the planet is an important concern. I'm not of the school of thought that sympathetic or morally grey antagonists automatically make a work of fiction better. Quite often the opposite is true, but if you are going to go down that route, then it's vital that you stick the landing, and Invasion of the Dinosaurs does that. As it turns out, this is the last script Malcolm Holt would ever write for Doctor Who prior to his death a few years later, and there's a curiously philosophical nature to it, almost as though Holt is taking an introspective lens to his own radical political background. Like all of his contributions to the show, it is highly thought-provoking, and if you're one of those who is put off by the shoddy dinosaur effects or the slow pacing of the opening 2 parts, then I urge you to give this one another chance, as there is a lot of good material here. Again, just don't come in expecting the dinosaurs to be the main selling point. As always, if you'd like to support this channel, then head over to my eBay store Colt Coven, where I sell media and other nerdy things. The link will be in the description below. I'm Midnight, and I travel in space and time. And trains.